that. Awesome. All right. Hi everyone, and welcome back to our LinkedIn Live series. If you have been following our journey, you know we get excited about talking about sustainability, innovation, and driving meaningful change, especially as it relates to business, data, operations, and bringing these topics to life with compelling use case studies and real-world scenarios. In today's conversation with our special guest, who I am very excited to introduce here in a second, we will be diving into the topic of sustainable supply chain management, where we will be exploring how companies are reimagining outdated processes, leveraging smarter strategies, and forging collaborations to build a sustainable future that works for everyone. Michael Cole, thank you for being here and for joining our podcast today. We are beyond thrilled to have you. Michael is an adjunct professor at Lewis University and an operations director with decades of experience in end-to-end supply chain management at some of the world's most well-known companies, including Kraft, Nabisco, and Frito-Lay, with expertise spanning corporate and field operations, warehouse management, transportation, and more. We look forward to learning from Michael today and tapping into a wealth of knowledge. I am Nineveh Zoudo, co-founder of Falcor 8, where we help companies blend sustainability, strategy, and data to create lasting impact. Joining me today are my two incredible co-hosts, Elena Lockwood, my business partner at Falcor 8 and a master of crafting bold strategies to help companies thrive in a rapidly evolving world, and Simone Schuppan, founder of C2 Impact, who works with green tech companies to translate sustainability goals into actionable business opportunities. Today's agenda will be covering the evolution of sustainable supply chain management. It'll cover challenges in aligned sustainability with operational efficiency. And then we'll move into discussing the role of data in sustainable supply chains. Then the importance of partnerships and collaboration. And finally, we'll wrap it up with discussing the latest and greatest emerging trends in sustainable supply chain management today. Michael, thank you for joining us again. Before we dive into the session, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and what fuels your passion for supply chain management?
Just a real quick kind of process. Can you see me? Because I lost image of all of yous on my laptop, but can you see me
We
in
can see
the
you.
you can?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to worry about what I'm seeing on the screen. Hi, my name is Michael Cole, and I have a long history in consumer products with some top-notch companies. And what I'm hoping to do is to take you through the journey and evolution of sustainability, which was one of my accountabilities in my last employer before I retired and went into teaching. It's really taken hold in accountability, even in small companies. You have retailers that want to see your strategy before you can continue to do business with them. And from a consumer standpoint, consumers are armed with so much data in their phone as well as their pads, and they're making purchasing decisions, even to the point where we'll pay a little bit of extra to buy from a company that has sustainable aspects of their strategy and the things that they do and put in their products to turn around and create and understand the effects that they have on waste streams in the environment.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll start by exploring how sustainable supply chain management has evolved over the years. Simone, taking it over to you.
Thanks, Nan. Michael, you've really had a front row seat to the transformation of supply chain management. How have approaches to sustainability evolved during your career?
Give you a couple examples. When you look at how it was in the early 2000s, there was companies that were doing things that were very sustainable in nature, but had just become a long-term business practice and didn't realize some of the impact and the goodwill that they had as far as an opportunity to communicate to its consumer base. I'll give you an example with companies like Frito-Lay, as well as other potato chip manufacturers. One of the byproducts of the manufacturing process for potato chips is starch. And when you turn around, you're washing the potatoes after they're being peeled, and then they go into the fryer. In that water is heavy starch content. And you could turn around and just discharge that as wastewater, or you can turn around and extract the starch out of the water, dry the starch, and sell it as a byproduct. That became a great revenue stream for potato chip companies to sell to U.S. starch, as well as the dry cleaning industry that uses starch as a byproduct rather than throwing it out. More and more companies started to look at the life cycle of their production stream and what are some of the things that they can do to minimize waste to landfill. So when you get into kind of 2010 and beyond, it became much more strategic as part of what they want to stand for as an organization. You'd see goals that were placed in the stock prospectus representing the company on a quarterly basis when they print it out. And when they do their annual one, there might be 3 pages dedicated to sustainability, talking about what are some of the things that they currently do to be friendly with the environment, to be friendly with their accountabilities with their suppliers. And the other big area that started to evolve here of late over the last 10 years plus has been the negotiations. I shouldn't say negotiations, but partnership with non-government agencies. They tended to be viewed in the past as just bugs, people that would, were loud and disrupt your organization. And it might be a small group, but that small group, based on their communication with the public, is a very large group. And they don't have any kind of authority, but they have power in the people that follow their media postings. And you could have a lot of detrimental PR associated with your practices when you turn around and you're not doing things that are sustainable in your practices. Or at the same time, you could be called out on public affairs issues to where, Nike was with manufacturing overseas and having deplorable child labor issues. So the partnership with non-government agencies is a way for you to understand what is it the public is looking for uh, in their processes. So that's kind of how it has evolved in almost like mandatory participation and sustainability, but it can become and recognized as a core strategy like marketing is because of the attention that it gets from the top of the house in C-suites and CEOs.
Thank you. You've given us a really good picture of how sustainability has evolved over the last several decades. What stands out to me is how really looking closely at existing processes, your starch example, listening to customers, and then new technologies and data have been really catalysts for this change. So 30 years ago, companies didn't have the tools to measure their environmental impact in real time. And today, tools like predictive analytics and digital twins have transformed that. An example that I was looking at, Nature's Path has built sustainability into the core of its supply chain. They're pioneers in regenerative agriculture, and they work with farmers to improve soil health and sequester carbon while maintaining organic practices. And on their operational side, they've committed to zero waste, manufacturing and diverting over 90% of their production waste from landfills. And they're achieving that by integrating sustainability into every decision, from sourcing ingredients to packaging and distribution. And they show that a food company can be profitable while putting the planet first or making an important part. What really excites me most about the shift is that it's going from compliance to innovation. You mentioned some examples that were kind of natural evolvement of companies making progress. And technology has allowed companies to move from reactive measures, like simply reducing harm, to proactively designing systems that deliver measurable positive impact. on the business side, to consumers and to to everyone else, like from all different aspects. Over to you, Elena.
Thanks, Simone. Um, Michael, as we look at the challenges companies face today, I think that one of the most pressing issues is balancing sustainability goals with operational efficiency. Can you share your insights on the biggest hurdles companies are encountering in this space?
I think one of the big hurdles to start off with is if you're looking to secure capital and invest in sustainability projects, sometimes the payout period might be longer than it would be for a traditional capital project that might have a payback of 3 years, and a sustainability project might have a payback of 5 years. One of the other areas that can become contentious if it's not agreed upon is the internal rate of return hurdle and viewing sustainability projects in the same light as it would be for a capital project for, say, replacing obsolete equipment or turning around and replacing your fleet because it's been on the road for 7 years. These are operating necessity projects. In a lot of cases, they can return the hurdle rate, if it is this 22%, but yet a sustainability project, the hurdle or actual internal rate of return might only be 9. So then you would say when they're looking at the projects and capital outlay required to run the organization from a sustainability standpoint as well as an operation standpoint, you might not be picked if you don't pre-sell the strategy and get an exception on your internal rate of return hurdle that would distinguish you differently than traditional operating efficiency or operating necessity type projects. The other thing is that just like any initiative from a strategic standpoint, you have to have sign off and robust enthusiasm at the very top. And when I say the very top, COO or CEO, that it adds value to the organization. It's what consumers are looking for. It will either have you meet competition or outplay top competition because of your sustainability platform. We're in a world where people make purchasing decisions based on data. Data is readily available. They can see if you're a sustainable company that follows best practices for, say, coffee purchases, whatever it might be. And that will make a difference in who they do business with. Even if it actually costs them a little bit more money, they want to turn around and do the right thing in purchasing from companies that have a strong strategy and interest in sustainability. So those are kind of the hurdles, is that you got to get top support to the organization. It's probably good that you have point people and then a couple of people that don't have to double hat. They're in a large company, they have 100% of their efforts are associated with sustainability, and their supporting cast can be people who have functional expertise but are doing a day job. And one of the things that they do is they represent distribution or represent transportation as a subject matter expert to the lead who is overseeing corporate sustainability.
Yeah, I completely agree. You're making so many great points, Michael. So to me, these challenges are basically highlighting the importance of having strategic alignment. So besides the very needed capital investments in sustainable equipment or uh, projects intended to reduce waste or achieve greater efficiency, um, I think that long-lasting success in terms of sustainability comes from embedding sustainable practices into the core of the business model. So instead of treating it as or treating sustainability as an isolated initiative or a reactive measure, it needs to be addressed at the business model level. The reason why is that, as you said, once your customer base changes their expectations, their preferences, what they want to purchase in terms of products or services, then you as a company need to update your value proposition so that you can keep serving your customer base. And once your value proposition changes, that has ripple effects on the rest of your business model. So even if talking about a full-blown transformative change is definitely ambitious, it is a given. When a company changes their value proposition to meet customer expectations, that has changes in operations and supply chain. It has changes in the way products are distributed, in the way products are marketed, in the way companies are branded. And that is also going to have an impact on the way you do business, on your financial modeling, on the costs that your company is experiencing, and the potential revenue streams that you are habilitating to meet your customer expectations. Now, focusing on the context of supply chain management, I think that aligning sustainability with operational goals can uncover opportunities for optimization, like reducing transportation emissions through smarter logistics or minimizing waste in manufacturing processes. It can also uncover opportunities to make sustainability a shared priority across all levels of the organization. So when, that said, as you mentioned before, Michael, it is key to have executive buy-in to make a sustainability initiative, big or small, successful. So when leadership teams champion sustainability as a core part of their business strategy, it cascades throughout the company culture, empowering employees to contribute innovative solutions in their roles. This creates, again, a ripple effect that drives meaningful product progress. That said, we definitely need to start somewhere. So, Michael, how do you think companies decide which sustainability solutions to implement or invest in while keeping operational efficiency in mind? So I'm thinking, for example, what is the role of sustainable real estate in warehouse and building purchasing decisions?
That's a good question. I'm glad you honed in on a specific function associated with supply chain and specifically logistics. In the warehouse, there's a number of things that you can do, and it's through publications and partnerships on the outside to get best practices. And two of the best practices that I'd like to share with you in a warehouse is one, how can you be more efficient in your energy? You're not in an environment like manufacturing where you have to look at the efficiencies of your production machinery, your energy use associated with the building and the individual production lines. In a warehouse, one of the areas that can be looked at is, can you invest the capital in the right lighting system that can turn around and let you be more efficient in electric utilization by having aisles go on and off with its lighting based on idle time down those lanes. You look at a warehouse that might be 500,000 square feet. It's an awful lot of racking and lanes, but yet the traffic in those lanes are not continuous throughout the day. So you can become more efficient by installing a lighting project that will shut down its lighting with inactivity in that particular lane. The other thing, it's the waste management associated with that particular facility. You look at all the recycling points and you want to try to strive, sometimes it's impossible, but you want to strive to zero landfill utilization with the waste streams that come out of your facility, and making sure that you're accounting and saving all of your corrugated. Is there a waste stream for your shrink wrap? And some of these things might require an empty trailer for storage because it creates a lot of utilization of floor space. So how do you take that away to where your floor space is used for finished product and it isn't used for bundles of waste. And you could give up one or two dock doors and just have drop trailers out there, and you work hand in hand. This kind of gets back to what we had mentioned, that kind of partnership. Partner with waste management. Ask them, these are the waste streams that we're sending you and you're hauling away to landfill. What are some of the things that we can do to recover this waste? And you could partner with us and point us in the direction of one of your divisions or one of your competitors that gets involved in this particular waste stream that we're currently giving you and you're dumping in the landfill. So those are two things in the distribution world, specifically in the warehouse, that you can turn around and implement programs that directly impact sustainability thoughts. And I think in logistics, if you look at it in three buckets, miles, so taking miles out of the network by reducing the touches in the truckloads, piles, which are the piles of inventory. How can you turn around and reduce your days of supply without impacting your fill rate to your customers? So therefore, you're utilizing less warehouse space and you can consolidate your warehouse network and make the ones that might be underutilized better utilized from a capacity standpoint. And idles, and that relates to how do you turn around and burn less fuel? What are some of the things that you could place in your trucks? For instance, an auto APU or auto auxiliary or power unit that's used so that your truck isn't turned on. It's a requirement for a lot of rest stops, but not everywhere where the truck stops and the person is at rest or in a hotel. But usually they're sleeping in the cab. How do you keep that cab air conditioned or heated without having to turn on the diesel engine? And this unit burns diesel, but it burns much, much less than it would if the engine was on. And it provides the power to your cab, which is your kind of hotel unit.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll now be flowing into the next part of the conversation where we talk about the role of data in sustainable supply chains. And so, as we have mentioned a few times throughout this conversation, data is such a powerful, tool in sustainable supply chain management. Michael, how can companies use data to make better decisions and measure their progress?
I think one of the things, and if you have to influence purchase of an ERP system that integrates data from a number of functional areas, HR, finance, and modules can be purchased for transportation management systems and warehouse management systems that link in to this enterprise system. And when I say enterprise system, an example would be SAP. There's still a lot of companies out there that have homegrown systems or they have purchase systems for TMS that are outdated. So that's kind of a start. But in the event that you're like the last person in line to get funding from IT to turn around and purchase a robust TMS system, you can do a lot of things through consultants as well as some of your top motor freight companies to bubble up a network of origin destination pairings from a raw data standpoint and look at opportunities. One of the big functions that can turn around and do that is your railroad companies that provide intermodal services to the field. They will take data and they will turn around and figure out, based on say a threshold of 650 or greater in mileage, what are the opportunities to convert from truckload to intermodal. So when there's conversations, if you're a consultant or you're a lead in the organization instead of transportation, you're not limited to having to have a robust TMS system. In the event that you're fortunate enough, and I was fortunate enough to have Oracle as my TMS system at one of my companies that I work for, you could turn around and do that intermodal kind of analysis in the background based on the origin destination pairings that are in the database. You could also look at pairings of continuous moves. There was a module associated with Oracle that will look and see patterns of freight that can be connected to where a run can be delivered from a raw material supplier to a plant, finished goods coming out of a plant to a mixing center, and a mixing center move to a customer. So you're completing an entire supply chain loop with one of your premier for hire carriers, and you can get that at a very low rate. And I say, well, what does that have to do with sustainability? When you do continuous moves, you're potentially eliminating truckloads because you're using the same carrier's tractor, and you have a drop trailer network, and they're dropping off and then picking up finished goods, and they are being more efficient in their network, better utilizing their fleet rather than a lot of one-way moves that burns a lot of extra fuel because it isn't an efficient move from all the origin destination. So from raw material to uh, customer, that's a great example of a no-touch move with one company in the most efficient patterns.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and wonderful insights. To summarize some of the key takeaways of everything you just mentioned, what I'm getting is that data serves as the foundation for identifying efficiency opportunities, such as becoming more efficient with inventory management or optimizing shipping methods, or when thinking about technology and how companies have outgrown their systems and considering investing in more robust systems, like you had mentioned, Oracle. And considering partnerships with intermodal providers and contractors and how they can transform raw data into actionable insights, and direct shipping strategies and SKU level analysis to reduce warehousing needs and create shared savings with customers. And then thinking about the baseline and goals. So you want to start with a strong data baseline and then stretch for achievable improvements. And by following this process, companies can make data-backed decisions to reduce cost, improve partnership, and optimize their supply chain. And also, thank you for providing all these great examples. Again, Michael, when I think about data in this context, I see data as the enabler that turns complex logistics challenges into opportunities for smarter, more sustainable decisions. To build on that, data isn't just about understanding the present, it's about unlocking the future. When companies integrate their data systems and develop a clear strategy around metrics and KPIs, they create a foundation for transformation. And breaking this down further, when considering metrics as the compass for decision making, for supply chains, metrics are more than numbers. They are the compass that guide decisions. They highlight inefficiencies and track progress. Companies cannot afford to rely solely on gut instincts alone. Instead, they should be asking questions like, what should we measure? Why does it matter? What insights will this unlock? For example, take cost per shipment and carbon emissions per route. These are key performance indicators that often reveal the hidden opportunities in a supply chain. A 5% reduction in shipping costs through smarter intermodal routing might not just save millions annually, but also cut emissions by 10 to 15%, aligning both operational and sustainability goals. Or, by implementing data models, companies can analyze scenarios like, what if we shift 20% of truckloads to rail? Or can we save fuel and time by bypassing mixture or mixing centers for certain SKUs? Which high demand products, such as packaged goods like mac and cheese, could go straight to stores, bypassing warehouses? These insights turn data from being descriptive, which is what happened, to predictive, which is what could happen, and then even prescriptive, which is what should we do next. So to drive meaningful change, companies must start by building a strong baseline to understand current operations and establish clear benchmarks for improvement. From there, raw data, often incomplete or unstructured, can be transformed into actionable insights through collaboration with key partners who specialize in turning complexity into clarity. At Falcor 8, for instance, we've seen how the right tools and expertise can help businesses identify opportunities, streamline their operations, and make data work smarter to drive sustainable outcomes. And by linking key metrics to tangible outcomes, companies can unlock strategies that benefit both their bottom line and sustainability goals. Ultimately, data becomes the engine of transformation, empowering businesses to make smarter, faster decisions that can turn their supply chains into a competitive advantage.
Well, speaking of competitive advantage, Michael, you've touched a little bit on partnerships. Do you have a specific example of how collaborations have played a role in your work?
Yes, and I'm kind of glad you asked that. One of the areas that the industry can partner with is with an organization that's called Smartway. It's a division of the EPA, which in some cases is viewed as kind of the evil empire, because a lot of the stuff that comes out of the EPA, great for the environment, things that you want to do to be progressive in the United States, often requires incremental investment that wasn't planned by the companies. But Smartway is an organization that you can become a member, and it's to share best practices. They have a robust computer program that you give them all your OD pairings, and you can turn around and answer a lot of questions on developing a baseline. And then together you formulate some goals that you're held accountable to. And you're also sharing with other organizations that sometimes what you might measure internally on where you stand, you might look good after year and you're kind of high-fiving everybody. But until you compare yourself against other industries as well as people within your industry, you don't know how good you could actually be, or you don't know how bad you could actually be. And more organizations are looking for platforms that will compare you from a data standpoint and best practice sharing. What's unique about this platform, unlike you're not allowed to share pricing and sales programs and things like that, this is an area that's viewed as a non-compete. So you can pretty much talk about anything relative to sustainability and the things that you would like to do or would like to understand what's out there to get to this particular goal, whether it be new waste streams or truck design. And what's great about Smartway is they're in tune with all the data associated with if you put side reflectors on your truck, that it will improve 1/10. If you put APUs in your truck, it will reduce your diesel consumption by X, because an APU unit to heat and cool and electrify the cab is a lot more efficient than if you turned on the engine to do that. So they really help with the best practices. One of the things that they do also very well is recognition. If you've done a lot of work and have proven that you got to the finish line on your goals, you could wind up being voted by that organization to be recognized publicly at Supply Chain Professional, which is the largest trade association for product supply in the world. And they give out their awards on stage at that meeting. You're there with thousands of people. So it's really nice PR to turn around and get that kind of recognition that you're doing the right thing and you're fighting the right fight to become a much more efficient transportation company. And then, the same thing holds true with other trade associations. But I found Smartway to be a great example of how industry can partner with government to become a more sustainable fleet.
Yeah, that's such a critical point that you touched on regarding partnerships, how public-private partnerships are such a critical piece of the puzzle, so that these collaborations allow companies to leverage government resources, the expertise, and policy support, while at the same time driving innovation through the private sector agility. Without losing the competitive edge, just really sharing things that will move everybody forward. What I was thinking is also kind of how partnerships with innovative startups can bring fresh perspectives. You mentioned earlier outdated IT systems and so forth, so that these innovative startups can bring fresh perspectives and breakthroughs to the table. Yeah, at the heart of this, like, partnerships are really about amplifying impact, and no company can do this alone, but together, whether through industry, innovation, or public-private collaboration, as you shared in your example with Smartway, we can really unlock those bold solutions that will help us become more sustainable.
What's great, and kind of another quick example, is when you do network overlays with someone. So I could turn around and do a network overlay, and I'm representing this consumer product company, and I want to maybe look at a overlay with, to say, for example, a beverage company. So you're looking at dry product and dry product. And you have a consultant that comes in as the clean house. So you give the data to them, they give the data to them. That takes away any issue with disclosure of pricing. It's just raw moves. And then you'll come and see what are some of the network overlays where you can be efficient in each other's fleets. For instance, you could be both on an active lane that is empty to you, and you both use a very popular carrier on these lanes. So it becomes easy to turn around and overlay and make that connection between, say, Coca-Cola and another consumer product company, to turn around and utilizing somebody that's a clean house, like a consultant, to turn around and make that happen and come back and make their recommendations on network overlays to reduce each other's empty miles.
That's another really great example. Wow. Elena.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Um, Very interesting. Okay, so before we wrap up, Michael, let's take a look into the future. What emerging trends in supply chain sustainability are you more or most excited about?
There's two things that are continuing to be out there. The technology of hybrid and electrified vehicles through Mercedes-Benz, Tesla, and other companies uh, has become much more hardened and developed. I find the alternative energy vehicles could be a great solution to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. It Those vehicles also the opportunity of driverless vehicles, and I'll tell you where I get to a comfort level and where I get a lot of angst. On the lanes that are not robust as far as traffic, your Nebraska, Dakotas, Wyomings, why do we have to have a driver in the cab? We could have a driver in the passenger seat, and you could have the driverless vehicle drive that length of haul, and then the driver will hop in the driver's seat when you get to a more condensed population, which is ending up being the final destination. There's been a lot of studies that have been done that in most cases, if not all, it's a lot safer because you're taking out the human element of fatigue and distraction. You save on DOT hours on that length of haul, so that when you turn around and you are having a driver drive that entire length, you're eventually going to have to stop multiple times based on DOT limits. The DOT limits, when he's a passenger, don't necessarily apply as if he was a driver. So you could have a move with a lot less time of the vehicle having downtime. The other areas of I think excitement, and it's a big investment, but it's short haul intermodal. You look at what I've quoted at 650 on the threshold on looking at intermodal versus truckload and where you can save money. But then you have all that other mileage and network that can't compete. There's been work done with Texas University, as well as other people down south in Texas, on moves in a monorail type system that's along the highway. And then you bring it to a less of a footprint, to where a crane is taking it and putting it in a small yard and it's going to the final mile destination, but you're getting much closer to that final destination with a monorail system than turning around and cutting off at 650, and all those loads have to be truckload because that you'll lose too many in transit hours to turn around and convert over the traditional intermodal when it's a shorter length of haul. I don't know where we're at with that, but we were originally involved in this Texas project, and we wrote a letter of basically enthusiasm from our CEO saying that if you build it, we will come. And that's something that they could take to their financing committee and the banks that, hey, we got a customer that's interested in this and's backing this. It never really got legs, but I'm hoping that given that this technology is out there, that someday we could see some of this and it takes trucks off the road, which people hate, even though it's a requirement to move our goods. They just don't like a lot of trucks on the road. I and you drive on the roads regularly. We're up to our eyeballs in repair for bridges and roads. Really, there's not a lot of money to turn around and build additional infrastructure for highways to turn around. But when you look at this, this is less expensive than it would be to turn around and build additional highways. So I'm kind of hoping that in my lifetime I'll see this come to fruition in closing the gap on our shorter lengths of haul over the rail.
Thanks, Michael. Yes, I completely agree with you. And there have been a lot of advancements in that area, being monorails, trains, or technology similar to bullet trains being developed for specifically for trans uh, transportation of goods. Um, I'm also very excited about driverless cars being partially or totally without a driver. I'm also very excited about electric vehicles in general, and the infrastructure and the user interfaces being built today to support this disruptive change. One other thing I'm excited about is circular economy practices and the opportunity to rethink how companies approach the traditional take, make, waste model of production and transform it into a system that focuses on reuse, repair, and recycling at every stage of a product's life cycle. So for me, understanding circularity is important because it can help companies extract maximum value from materials while minimizing waste. And this is huge. This doesn't just benefit the environment, it also creates significant business opportunities such as cost savings, new revenue streams aligned to what customers are demanding today in terms of sustainability, enhanced regulatory alignment, and also improved resilience against resource scarcity. So looking ahead, the circularity or the circular economy is more than a sustainability initiative. I think it's actually a blueprint for how businesses can thrive in a resource-constrained economy. As more companies adopt this approach, I think that we'll see a ripple effect across industries, creating a network of supply chains that are not only efficient, but also regenerative by design, which will promote eventually the emergence of more ecosystem business models. We're not going to touch on that topic on this session. I think that merits a whole different conversation, but still, those are the things that excite me about the future of sustainability, the future of sustainable supply chain. So Michael, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. If today's session sparked ideas or questions, we would love to hear them. So feel free to post any questions you might have on the chat so that we can ask them before wrapping up.
Thanks, Elena. And also, again, a special shout out to Michael for walking us through the evolution of supply chain sustainability. To everyone listening today, we hope you're leaving here with practical insights and inspiration to take with you and to take it into action. Stay curious, stay collaborative. Let's keep building a better future together.
Thanks for having me. This actually was my first podcast. I'm normally on a executive panel at trade shows and things like that, to where I'm actually talking to the audience. But this was a great experience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you also from me. It was great to hear from somebody who has like really on the ground experience and has seen the evolution over time. So thank you very much, Michael.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.